Too many of us are led by too many people who refuse to do the right thing. And now at least 30 states have surging coronavirus cases. And here's the really scary part of the potential impact of the mismanagement. The CDC thinks there may be 10 times as many of us sickened by COVID than what's actually reported. Think about that. It would mean that it could be 20 million of us, not 2 million plus. And yes, of course, the president owns it. Why? He is Mr. Masks or Weakness. He is Mr. Do the minimum to help states protect people. But he's sending marshals to protect statues that honor racist figures from our past. And no, I'm not talking about Lincoln and Washington and Jefferson. And you know it.
Well, what I don't know, Bro Cuomo, is what do you think about the tearing down of statues of Lincoln and Jefferson and Columbus? Is that okay? You're a Democrat. You're a big lib, millionaire lib, going between your two houses in the Hamptons during the COVID crisis. Must be tough. What do you think about all that? You got a problem with it? No, of course not. Of course not. He's also busy doing these puff interviews with his brother, the governor of New York, because he's a journalist, where they talk about what a great job he's done. Cuomo, in a sane world, would have to resign. I don't just mean resign from his crappy propagandistic left-wing Democrat make-believe news show. I'm talking about the other Cuomo. You know, this Cuomo, the one who wants to make things better. What does he have to do for people to understand that he is terrible at his job, but he wants you to listen to him now? Nobody can tell him that he has to stop this thing. So that governor of New York should resign just based upon the numbers. He is throwing shade at Governor DeSantis in Florida. 3,000 Floridians have died. 30,000 New Yorkers have died. Population roughly the same. And a lot of seniors, more seniors and more senior centers in Florida than in New York. So 10x the deaths in New York. But Cuomo thinks he should be lecturing people on how you should wear a mask. Wear a mask. I'm telling you, look, I don't have the evidence right now to say definitively that a mask doesn't do anything, but I think it does very little. If a mask really worked in a meaningful way, explain to me why there was the continued transmission of COVID-19 all throughout the lockdown, when everybody who was going anywhere in public was wearing a mask. I want to know. Oh, it reduces it by how much? You know the answer? They don't know. They just assume. Let's think this one through. And I'm not even going to keep harping on this CDC study about influenza that shows that masks basically doesn't really do anything. Now, do I think that a full respirator that, is getting down to like the micron level, that do I think that people that have face shields and where nothing can penetrate? Yeah, I think for medical providers, sure, I'm not. But you think a little piece of cloth over your mouth is, oh yeah, now I'm good. Really? How much did mask wearing really change the game during the Spanish influenza pandemic? People had little cloth masks on all over the place. Look, I'm asking these questions. Remember, for anybody who goes, how could you be? The science says, really? Because the science at the start of this pandemic, we all remember it, did not say wear a mask. Okay? The scientific consensus as of March of 2020, in the middle of the pandemic, don't wear a mask. You know I'm telling you the truth. The World Health Organization guidance, don't wear masks. We need them for our first responders. First of all, we got masks everywhere. I mean, they're giving out masks at places like I got a mask. Oh, we're going to lose. We're not going to have masks for our first responders. The people in charge are making these. They're idiots. We can't make enough masks for people. We got masks everywhere. We got warehouses full. We got masks coming out of the woodwork. But we're supposed to listen to them now. And if you don't believe them, if you don't listen, you're a bad person. Because the governor wants to tell you you have to wear a mask. My brother's doing a great job interviewing me on his show. It's really just horrible. But, They've just managed, even though we knew it was coming, even though I told you this was going to happen, silence about COVID for 2 weeks of just mayhem and protesters and looters and everything going on. No social distancing. There's an Occupy protest, which is basically an encampment with hundreds of people in close quarters. They can do that, but I can't go to a gym, even with social distancing and only allowing a handful of people in at one time. And we could open all the windows and make it basically open air, but they can do that, but I can't go to a gym because Governor Cuomo says so. And he's a dumb tyrant, but Democrats elected him, and they're too stupid to change their minds. So here we are. I'm sorry. I'm really fired up about this because they are stealing months of our lives from us. They don't know how to stop this pandemic. They don't know what they're doing. They're making stuff up. Enough is enough. I'm sick of this. I'm tired of this. But we got to fight back. It's not enough. Not enough to be angry about the situation we're being put through. We have to understand how to get out of it. And if we listen to Democrats, remember, they are not incentivized to make the country better right now. And I know that's crazy, but they're crazy. You have to keep this in mind. We want to keep reverting back to we're all on the same team to get people their lives back, get them their jobs back, and allow life to continue. Democrats, no. Keep America in prison as long as, but the whole country, keep it locked down in prison. And where there are riots going on in the prison, right, with the lockdown, keep that as long as possible. Misery, despair, that's the currency that Democrats want. That's what they're going to use to take power in the fall. We have this is why I keep saying it is an insurgency. We have one side that wants stability, safety, prosperity, and the other side that wants rage and arson and looting and panic. It's happening every day. It keeps playing out. When was the last time you saw a good news story on CNN? Do yourself a favor. Go check out the website. Look for a story that is good news about this country right now. You won't find it. MSNBC, same thing. ABC News, which is just as bad as the others, same thing. Nope. Not going to happen. We should all understand what we're up against right now. They are going to try and lock down again. If they do, it's all over for Trump. If they get a second lockdown, if they frighten people that much that we have another lockdown. I mean, in Arizona, I think I've got to start pulling some of these numbers so I can make the case to you about this. But first, producer Brandon, would you play clip 7 for us on this issue of the second lockdown?
The economy is not going to be closed down again. There may be certain places where there is. That's up to the local authorities. I don't deny that. But fatalities are still down, and there's a lot of positive declines in cases, just as there are negative declines in cases. So, you just have to walk through that. But no, we will not shut the economy down. We're not getting that advice from help.
So the federal government's saying they're not going to shut the economy down, but what is going to happen? And I've been telling you that this should be our expectation all along. What is going to happen now? The certain states will not shut down entirely, but they don't have to. They will just reassert their power under this declaration that the Constitution does not matter because of COVID. And they'll put us all into phase 2 or phase 3 or phase 1 or phase 0 or whatever. And they'll think that they'll tell their constituents, we're keeping you safe. Keep protesting. Oh, we're not going to stop you from doing that. Organize just like they would want them to. This is one hand washing the other. Democrats in big Democrat states keep us all miserable and on lockdown. And then they allow people to organize against the Republican Party. This is the 1-2 punch that we are facing the Democratic Party. We should understand it right now. Florida's in the news a lot these days. So is Texas. They're saying there's big COVID spikes. We're all supposed to panic. I thought we were going to move the Freedom Hunt to Florida. What the heck is really going on down there? And also, I want to bring on somebody who understands the dynamics of the Trump White House, and the president himself knows him quite well personally. Our friend Andy Dean is back in the mix. He is an entrepreneur, radio host, conservative commentator, podcaster, man about town. Mr. Dean, good to have you.
Great to be here. Thanks, Buck. How are you?
I'm all right, man. So you're down in Florida. DeSantis was basically the guy putting on a clinic for a while on how to handle COVID. And now Cuomo's saying he played politics and it's out of control there and all kinds of things are going on. What's really happening in Florida with the response to COVID?
Right. Well, first to Cuomo, who him and his brother just, they're total disasters. And the fact that Cuomo had his fancy press conferences for 100 days in which he did nothing but play politics. And then all of a sudden he's preaching to other people. Anyone with any common sense knows that that's a sad, hypocritical joke. As far as Florida, there have been a rise in cases. Some of this is due to more testing, which people know. The key thing, of course, is to watch the positivity rate and then watch ICU admissions and then deaths. The good news is when it comes to mortality, deaths, that's staying somewhat level at about 40 to 50 a day in Florida. And considering that naturally in Florida, every day there are about 700 people that die of all causes, and 40 to 50 are from COVID. If you look at that percentage, it's less than 10%. And in general, when less than 10% of the population may have COVID at any given point, when you test dead people looking for something, you're going to find a lot of things in their system. So it's not so much cause for alarm because the death rates haven't changed, but the actual testing and positivity rates are going up slightly, but they're very variable. Like, for instance, I have the numbers here in Broward County, and the positivity rate, of course, means the number of people they test, how many are testing positive. On Tuesday, the positivity rate in Broward County was 11%, and then on Wednesday, 6.5%, and then on Thursday, it jumped back up again. In Miami-Dade, it was 19.5% on Tuesday, then down to 10.1% on Wednesday, and then it jumped up again a little bit yesterday. So these numbers statistically are all over the map. It's hard to look at any one given day and draw a trend line. So it's going to take a little bit more time. But I think in aggregate, you are getting more cases because you're having more testing, and there is a slightly higher positivity rate.
But are you guys worried that you're going to have to go backwards in terms of lockdowns in your state? Because Florida was kind of the beacon of hope for those of us, especially in New York. We're saying, look, it is possible to have a lot of seniors and have population density, but to control this thing, does it still feel like it's under control down there? Or are people really talking about how they're going to shut down all the restaurants, everything's going to get shut down again?
Yeah, so actually I just came from a diner an hour ago for lunch, and I was talking about that with the guy who owns 6 diners in Fort Lauderdale, and he doesn't have, no pun intended, the stomach to close down again. I don't think anybody does. It's just enough is enough. We all get it. All this is how you define risk. I mean, your odds of dying in a car wreck are 1 in 103 in your lifetime. And if you're young and healthy and under the age of 30, your odds of dying of coronavirus are more like 1 in a million. So the riskiest thing you can ever do in life, well, besides being like an injectable drug user or something, is to get into your car. And so if people are willing to get into their car, they're making an omission, a contract, a silent contract, that they're willing to entertain risk in their lives. And so for me, I look at this as all an exercise in futility. It's all silly because the death rate in aggregate, the mortality rate of COVID is now so low. It's closer to what the flu is in any given year. It's about 0.2%. The flu is about 0.1, 0.15%. So in aggregate, I think that this entire thing is stupid. Of course, that's my opinion. The country of Sweden agrees with me. I think the way that they handled it in retrospect a year from now will be looked on as the only right way to handle it, which is you take care of the most vulnerable, you separate them, you may not have large events, but everybody else, we need to live our lives because the only other option is we stay cloistered up in our houses or in our apartments, and we all die from something different, which is a dysfunctional economy in which people are committing suicide or they have no money so they can't access healthcare. So it all just depends on how you look at risk.
And Andy, I wanted to, we're speaking to Andy Dean, podcaster, radio host, entrepreneur, conservative commentator. Had some great stuff on CNN back in the day. Always appreciated Andy. You were willing to go on CNN when you were going on when people were shook to go on CNN. You know, they were like, "Oh my God, Andy would do it. He'd get it in the fight." And you were an early Trump surrogate. You know the president. You know Donald Trump personally pretty well. I'm worried about the guy, man. I see him. It just feels like he's lost a step recently. He's a little beaten down. He doesn't. But I know that you're a guy who's seen what he's able to pull off. You know, what can you tell us on the upside here? I mean, you think Donald's is he playing a little rope-a-dope and he's going to come out, throwing haymakers any moment now? What's happening?
Sure. So I think my answer as to how is he going to do in November is that nobody can predict the future. And that may be an obvious thing, but a lot of pundits forget that 4 to 5 months from now, we're going to have the election, right? But 4 to 5 months ago, what were the top stories in the news? It was, the Australia wildfires and, the tragedy with Kobe Bryant. And then over the next, 4 to 5 months, who the heck could have predicted everything that transpired? So then you have to extrapolate that out into 4 to 5 months from now, what's going to happen? And we have zero clue. I mean, I think a likely scenario to the upside, an unexpected event, is I think we're going to see a vaccine in October. And the reason why I think that is that back in 2009 with H1N1, they developed a vaccine that was 90% effective within 8 months. And a lot of people forget that. And so I think it's going to come in October. So I think that's going to give them a lot of mojo, a lot of momentum. And then look, the debates are going to be critically important in October. And it's impossible to predict. Pundits will tell you whatever because they get paid to do that. And I don't blame them if, it's easy to be a pundit and it's easy to get paid and just spout nonsense. So I respect that. But the reality is in October, these debates are going to happen. 100 million Americans are going to be watching. And who the hell knows? I mean, with Joe Biden and the few marbles he has rolling around in his head, is it possible, that they wake him up from the comatose state that he lives in and inject him with something that they give to horses in the Kentucky Derby and he does great? Yeah, that's very possible. And he could do an excellent job in the debates. My gut tells me is that he's going to lose his train of thought every 20 seconds, and the American public are going to reassess their choices. And as we know in a democracy, no choice is perfect, but you make the best one that's in front of you. So if the election were held today, I agree, Trump might be in rough standing, but in 4 to 5 months, who the hell knows what's going to happen?
Andy Dean, everybody. Andy, always appreciate it, man. Stay safe down in Florida. Keep a spare bedroom open for me and producer Mark so we can get some sun sometime.
Sounds good. So I only have one extra bedroom you guys can share.
Producer Mark's a cuddly one. Thanks, man.
All right. I'll get bunk beds for you guys. No problem.
We race car bunk beds, please. Thank you.
Okay.
I like the movie Forgetting Sarah Marshall. Not for the kids, so it's only for adults, but I think it's a pretty good movie. Producer Brandon, you ever see that one?
I have several times.
I like it. I don't know. And my little sister says that I remind her a little bit sometimes of that guy, Jason Segel, I think, that actor. So, I'll take it. But it's a fun movie. It's funny. It's the best thing Russell Brand has ever done, in my opinion. And it's just an entertaining film overall. So it's with a little bit of too bad that I see the female, the actress in that, the main female, or I guess one of two main females, Kristen Bell, has decided that she has to go through one of these wokeness struggle sessions. And before I take you through her specific struggle session, let's just understand what it is. Struggle sessions came from Maoist China during the Cultural Revolution because things didn't work out very well. In the 1960s with Mao Zedong, right? We always talk about Mao and what happened in communist Red China. Things weren't going well. And they had some enormously unsuccessful and disastrous policies. And when you're running an autocracy that's really just based on brute force and Marxism, what do you do when things go badly? Do you take responsibility and say we'll make different decisions? No, you got to find enemies. Kind of sounds like Democrats, doesn't it? You got to find people who are the problem, and you pin it all on them. So what ended up happening was a public purge of the intellectuals and class enemies of all kinds. And you would do this very publicly. They got students to be involved in this. They told the students, the young, they radicalized the young and said, you're a part of the revolution. You will be the Red Guards, the paramilitary Red Guards of Mao's revolution. And then those Red Guards would be in charge of finding people who are from the old society and are effectively enemies of the revolution or counter-revolutionaries. The Soviets had a very similar thing. And then they had these struggle sessions where people would be held out and sometimes even marched before a crowd. They'd be held up, marched before a crowd, paraded through streets, paraded across the campus, and they would just be publicly humiliated. And no one even knew what they were really guilty of, other than but you had to have these people who were put forward, who were humiliated publicly and then behind closed doors, tortured and destroyed as a giant scapegoating for the failures of communist Mao policies and society. Right? Oh, look at these people. Oh, this goes back to if you haven't again read 1984. You have to do that to really understand this current moment. I mean, the Democrats are almost using it as a how-to manual, and you'll have the 2 minutes hate, where you had people, members of the outer party of Oceania, would be watching on a screen, and they would just show, "Oh, we hate him so much," and everyone has to turn against Emmanuel Goldstein, the enemy of the people, and the 2 minutes hate. That's a version of a struggle session, right? This is the problem. See, be angry at this person. Kind of like the cops, right? You see that? Oh, the cops are the reason we have all this. No, the cops are not the reason that there is a disproportionate homicide rate in certain communities, in certain places in this country. It's not the cops' fault. The cops are not the reason why there is a continued failure of the public school system in inner city schools. The cops are not the reason why there's opioid overdose pandemic happening and why there's continued drug use and broken families and despair and domestic abuse. No. The cops prevent that virus from infecting all of society. The cops prevent those dysfunctions within society from spilling out and becoming society. Thank you, law enforcement. But you'll notice that they have been picked as the class enemy right now. And then also, let's be honest, white people are also part of this struggle session. They're actually at the very heart of it. Now, it's really shifted from police to now it's about systemic racism and oppression and the history of colonialism and statues of white people. I have not seen a statue of a non-white person be destroyed yet, although I guess, well, they wanted to go after the Conquistador de Oñate, so maybe. But is a Spaniard white? I think so. Whole other conversation. So that then brings me to this why was I talking about Forgetting Sarah Marshall, which is a movie that I do like. It's because Kristen Bell, who is a very pretty, but based on this posting, not all too bright actress. You got to read it. I mean, this reads like a hostage letter written from inside the Gender and Oppression Studies Department at a third-tier liberal arts college. Yeah. So she shared this statement. I don't even know what this show is or anything else, but it was from the what is the show called again? Playing the Molly in Central Park character. That's what this was all about. Now, she cast a mixed race character with a white actor, or they cast a mixed race character with a white actress, which Kristen Bell says undermines the specificity of the mixed race and black American experience. So I just want to be very clear. If you have a mixed race character, that character can be played by a mixed race person, so a person who has parents of different races, or can be played, I would assume, by a person who is black or representative of the minority, within that pairing of parents, right? So if your parents are white and if your mom is white and your dad is Hispanic, the left thinks it's okay for a Hispanic person to play that character. Or if your mom is white, or your dad is white and your mom is black, a black person can play that character. A mixed race person can play that character, but the white person cannot. These are the new rules. These are the new rules we are being told we have to live under. And if you think this is weird, you got a problem with it, you're a racist. You're a bad person. That's what they want you to know. Kristen Bell puts this out. This is a time to acknowledge our acts of complicity. Here's one of mine. This is a public, please, flagellate me, abuse me, attack me for my mistakes. I'm wearing a horsehair shirt. Some of you who know the history of the Catholic Church will understand what that's all about. I need to be punished for my evil in the past or for my lack of wokeness. And there was this, the statement that was put out by the Central Park is a show. The statement that was put out is stunning. You have to, this is important because the words that the left forces people to use are not the way that any normal person speaks. But this is like the repetition you have of a cult. There are phrases and there are concepts that you must just repeat brainlessly and endlessly to show your obedience, your fealty to the movement. And you better not think about what you're saying because these are thoughtless things to say. They don't make sense. Here's the Central Park team. Producer Brandon, do you know what this Central Park show is? Do you know what I'm talking about with this?
I've heard of it, but I've never watched it.
Is it a TV show?
It's a cartoon. I think it's on Netflix.
Oh. Well, interesting. Anyway, Kristen Bell is an extraordinarily talented actress who joined the cast of Central Park near the first day of the show's development. But after reflection, Kristen, along with the entire creative team, recognizes that the casting of the character of Molly is an opportunity to get representation right, to cast a black or mixed race actress and give Molly a voice that resonates with all the nuance and experience of the character as we've drawn her. Kristen will continue to be a part of the show in a new role, but we will find a new actress. Black people and people of color have worked and will continue to work on Central Park, but we can do better. We're committed to creating opportunities for people of color and black people in all roles, on all our projects, behind the mic, etc. Animation, it is a cartoon, will be stronger for having as many voices, experiences, and perspectives as we possibly can bring into the industry. Well, but you just said Kristen Bell can't be a part of this character. So what exactly is going on here? And then she says, this is a time to acknowledge our acts of complicity. Here's one of mine. Playing the Molly character in Central Park shows a lack of awareness of my pervasive privilege. Casting a mixed race character with a white actress undermines the specificity of the mixed race and black American experience. What? It's a cartoon. What is, think about this for a second. She's an actress. They play people they are not. She's an actress who's doing a voiceover for a cartoon. And she has to put out this hostage statement. I'm sorry for my complicity. And look, I don't know if she really believes this or if she's just bending the knee because she wants to have jobs in Hollywood. But, this is somebody who she has 2.7 million Twitter followers. Why do people follow people who don't know anything and have nothing to say of their own on social media? Oh my gosh, the youth is lost. The youth is lost. We elevate idiots and we wonder why the country is in this position. In her Twitter avatar, she has Lin Manuel what's his name? Lin-Manuel Miranda, right? Lin-Manuel Miranda, the guy that founded Hamilton, which is a show that casts entirely minorities playing white historical figures. But so it can go that way, but it can't go the other way. These are the new rules. Don't question the rules. Bend the knee. Shut your mouth. Don't question the rules. You want to lose your job? You want HR to come knock on your door or send you an email? We have to have a talk about diversity and inclusion. But wait, hold on. I thought we were in the trust tree. I thought we were in the nest, and we could discuss that. We already have a lot of diversity hiring programs, and what? I'm sorry. Were you asking a question about as a white person, or are you in corporate America now asking a question about a diversity and inclusion program? I'm not even asking if you're asking a bad question. Are you asking any question? Because you're supposed to shut your mouth, nod your head. You're supposed to have a nice warm glass of shut the heck up. That's what you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to ask any questions. I'm sorry for my white privilege. You're right. I'm so white, and I'm just I wanted to go. This is the country you live in now. This is what the left has foisted upon us. It is a madness. It is a sickness of the mind, and it is pulling us apart. The idiots, many of them rich and famous, unfortunately, are running the show now, folks, in every sense.
Driving while black, jogging while black, sleeping while black. We have been criminalized for the very way we show up in the world. Under the harsh gaze of far too many, my black body is seen as a threat, always considered armed. Centuries of institutionalized oppression will not be undone overnight, for racism in America is as structural as the marble pillars of this very institution. With the power of the pen, we must legislate accountability, dismantle these systems, and move in the direction of justice and healing. The Justice and Policing Act is a critical step forward, and I applaud the leadership of the Congressional Black Caucus. But our work is unfinished. There is a rallying cry in communities across the nation. Black Lives Matter is a mandate from the people. It's time. Pay us what you owe us. Our black skin is not a crime. It is the beautiful robe of nation builders.
I mean, this is just the kind of rhetoric that you're going to continue to hear until people say, what is she talking about? Is anyone in the country, she's claiming here that there are people who criminalize black skin. That is her claim. That is what she has said. Where does that exist in the law or in practice? I need to know. Are all the people who are being arrested for various crimes across the country, are cops letting people off for crimes who are white and arresting people who are black because of their skin color for committing the same offense? Is that the allegation? I'd like to see the evidence. I'd like to see the data. These are sweeping claims that sound to somebody. It almost sounds thoughtful if you're a leftist, and then you think through this and the Accountability Act for police. What are they going to do? Oh, greater transparency and accountability? How is that supposed to work? It's going to mean what? That now cops can't do, if cops can't do chokeholds, if their complaints about them are put out there for public view, you're not going to have 20 unarmed black men a year killed in the United States, a country of 320 million people. You what? You might cut it down, you think, to theoretically, you might cut it down to 10, maybe to 5. If we cut it down to 0 next year, do you think that anybody who's currently out there protesting and everything else would be satisfied with it? No, of course not. Because it's about so much more than that. It's about the entire system. They claim the whole system is racist. On what evidence? On what evidence is the law, and in what evidence is law enforcement racist? As I've told you before, we can get into, if we want to get into disparate impact and disparate per capita rates of different law breaking and criminal activity, you could make a very strong case that if that's the approach you take, white collar criminals are overwhelmingly white, right? So is that targeting the white community? Finance crimes, Wall Street crimes, overwhelmingly white guys, white men, not even just, white men overwhelmingly. Is that, do I want to advocate for the abolition of that law because No. Laws on assault, on rape, overwhelmingly target men, not women. Is that a case of hating men, targeting men? No. Men break those very valid and necessary laws a lot more than women do. Is that evidence of systemic oppression of men? No person argues it's the case. And yet, look at the way we're having discussions right now about the system. But just be lectured. Don't ask any questions.